And first off is the Bet Bright Dipper Novices Chase at 125. I think this looks a really good race considering there's not many runners. Frank, take us away with the betting, please.
Yeah, Willoughby Court is 5-4 favourite. Yanworth 7-4. Ballyandy 5-1. Sight in Tennessee 9-1. And Ami Dubois is 16-1.
Right, Frank, we'll kick off with you then. Obviously, Willoughby Court now has a £5 penalty and he's re-opposing Yanworth. Whose side would you be on, or would you be looking at something else?
Oh, it's very tough. Like, I think Yanworth's jumping hasn't been brilliant. Now, he still was only beaten about slightly over 3 lengths the last day, staying on strongly at the finish. Now, I do think the key to this race potentially could be the heavy ground. Like, Willoughby Court is one in soft at Warwick, but this proper heavy, it's hard to get that race when Yanworth absolutely hacked up in the Neptune trial on heavy ground out of your head. I think it might actually might suit him. Getting the £5 as well in the stiffer finish here, I never thought I'd be saying this, but you know something, I might actually chance Yanworth here. Now, Ballyandy is interesting coming back from a break. He should handle the ground, the trip as well. He should be okay. He'd probably done most of his running over 2 miles, but it's an intriguing race. I'd probably just side with Yanworth, but it's not with great confidence, and I never thought I'd be saying that, considering how he's come so far. But I think with the ground and the £5 and the stiffer finish, I think he might play to his strengths, and I'd probably side with him. No confidence though.
Ami Dubois is another one who's clearly going to love the ground. And we were talking before, Ed, about how Ballyandy's really interesting coming back off this layoff. What do you make of his chance?
Yeah, it's a muddling little race, this, isn't it? Ballyandy obviously had a little setback after his win back in September. I can't remember exactly what it was, some kind of problem with his leg. But yeah, reportedly scored well the other day. It was good form at the track. Ground won't be an issue. I find it a little bit an intriguing little race. I kind of see what Frank's saying with Yanworth, but he's just a horse who drives me mad. I think ever since I backed it 20-1 with the Champion Hurdle, when he ran like his legs were tied together, going off 7-4, I've kind of had a vendetta against him, I think. So it's probably more my error than anyone else's. But with the £5 he's getting from him on soft ground, I could see why he could reverse the form Willoughby Court. But I actually kind of feel Willoughby Court was better value than the 3 lengths. I get a feeling that as he would have pulled some more out if Yanworth had come alongside him. So yeah, it's a race I'm finding very hard to have a kind of a clear angle in. The one I do think is overpriced here though is Ami Dubois, who isn't as illustrious or doesn't have as an illustrious profile over hurdles as the likes of Willoughby Court or Yanworth. But Graham McPherson gone on record this week saying, look, the more rain, the merrier for this horse. He's got his ground. He'll run through mud. He'll run through treacle all day long. And whilst, yeah, probably, I think it's fair to say, doesn't quite have the class of some of the other two, ground can often be a leveller. So to make him 16-1 outsider of 5, I think it probably underestimates his chances. But yeah, it's a tricky old race. I don't know if Nick's got a clear angle in on this.
I couldn't have put it better myself, Ted, to be honest with you. I completely agree with you about Ami Dubois. I think if it was trained by someone other than Graham McPherson, he'd be half the price. He's got off to a brilliant start with fences, 2 from 2. He loves heavy ground. He wasn't far away in the Albert Bartlett last season. He ran a good race in that. He's a good horse. And, you know, as Ted said, when you get ground this heavy, as we saw at Newbury yesterday, it can be a real leveller, and class can go out the window to an extent. That said, I could see him running really well. I still make it between the big two, and I'd still side with Willoughby Court just about, because I thought he was much more fluent at Newbury last time out. He put pressure on Yanworth's jumping, and the soft ground might help Yanworth in that respect. But I just think he'll get Yanworth going again. I think Yanworth wants 3 miles. I think that would suit him better. It'd just allow him longer and more time to get into the race. And I could see Willoughby Court putting him under real pressure and Yanworth just maybe hitting 1 or 2. I think he will get there over fences, but he hasn't been an immediate hit, and it might take him a bit longer before we see the best of him. So I'd go for Willoughby, but big run, I think, from Ami Dubois on the cards.
I think a lot of this could be to do with the pace, couldn't it? I mean, Willoughby Court and Ami Dubois have both been quite prominent races in the past, and if they get in a rhythm out ahead in Cheltenham, we know it's really hard to make up ground on that ground as well. So perhaps that could be a little bit of a chink in the armour of Yanworth if he gets far back and his jumping doesn't quite stand the test. What do we reckon?
Yeah, possibly. It could be the case. There could be a lot of pace on here. I mean, I don't think Ballyandy will want to hang around either.
No.
He's often ridden quite, well, I think will be ridden quite promptly. So, yeah, I think Willoughby Court's the most likely winner, but I do think Ami Dubois, when I priced this race up myself, I had him single figures. So, by that logic, it's 16, 14 to 1 or whatever, I should be backing him. I do think the market probably is overlooking him to some extent.
The other thing about Yanworth, if he does get well beaten tomorrow, might they think about the stayers hurdle for him, bring him back over hurdles?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Harry's getting on in years now. It'd give JP quite a big weapon in that race.
I've heard some people mention that before as well. Frank, what price is he, just out of interest? Have you got a price on him for the stayers hurdle?
Give me 1 second there, and you've landed on me very quickly. But I'll see.
No worries. I'm my bad for doing that.
We're 16 to 1. 16 to 1.
16 to 1. So perhaps, yeah, I can see your angle there. Moving on now to the 2 o'clock bet right. Best for festival betting handicap chase. That's the Grade 3. Shantu Flyer won it last year. I believe he's back again. We've also got the likes of Top Gamble and a few others who are used to running around here. Frank, how do we bet?
Yeah, we've joint favourite Salmon Tegal and Burton's Well are both 4 to 1. Top Gamble 9 to 2. Ballyhill 5 to 1. The Enval 15 to 2, and we're 8 to 1 bar.
Right, okay. Nick, I'll go to you first. You can kick us off with this one. Who would your selection be?
I've only had a very brief look at this before we came on air, but again, it goes back to the ground for me. Very similar ground to when Splasher Ginge won in November on heavy, where he beat Starkitect, obviously, the ill-fated Starkitect. And yeah, I mean, he was a bit disappointing last time. And I think they did have him in the Welsh National as well, didn't they? I think this race will suit him a hell of a lot better. I don't think he's a confirmed stayer at kind of Welsh National trips, but I think round Cheltenham on heavy ground, he's only up £5 for that win in November. He's just a horse that you can always underestimate, and he can surprise you. I was on Starkitect that day in November, and I thought he had it won with just Splash of Ginge to get past in the home straight. Couldn't do it. So I think it's dangerous to write him off again, and I think he's a decent price.
I think the reason they had him in the Welsh National is probably because they've always had that Grand National dream, haven't they? So they want to try him again at those marathon trips, but he's clearly very at home over this trip. Ed, anything to add?
Worryingly in agreement with Watsy here. I do think
blimey.
never happens, but no, Splash of Ginge, he didn't really get he couldn't really dictate matters in the second half of the race last time out. And the ground was a bit quicker in the December Gold Cup than what he'll be facing here, and only 10 stone 11 on his back. He's a little bit of a one-trick pony, but he's a very effective one-trick pony. Give him 2.5 miles, Cheltenham and bottomless ground, and he just seems to thrive on it. So I think Splash of Ginge, again, is overpriced. It's only £5 higher. The really interesting one in here, you mentioned before we came on air, Maddie, is Visconti de Noia, who the wheels look like they've come off recently, but it's now starting to look dangerously well handicapped. Stays over 3 miles, which in this ground, stamina's not going to be an issue. I could see that one running well. I think he's priced up as outsider of the field. Again, I could see him running a big race. But no, I think Splash of Ginge is a fair price here. And with the 9 runners, hopefully it doesn't cut up to 7. I think you're getting a fair each way shout with him.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Visconti de Noia. I think he's got that form on this ground and over longer trips as well. But he just needs to put it together. He's been a bit frustrating. Frank, who's your selection?
Yeah, I thought that Burton's Well was very interesting. He's very lightly raced for. He'll be 9 tomorrow. He's only had 8 runs ever. This will be his 9th run. You can look back at some of his form. His handicap debut last November, he was beaten 7 lengths by Waiting Patiently. But Waiting Patiently was running off a mark of 123. And as we know now, he was absolutely chucked in that day. He's also won heavy ground with Utoxter, and we know he can get really, really testing there. He fell at the festival for the novice handicap when he was only 8 to 1, and at Stratford on his reappearance in October, on good soft ground, he was only beaten a neck by Romanda Sanam, who was very much well in under a penalty that day. Romanda Sanam ran off a £6 higher mark in both the Bet Victor Gold Cup and Caspian Caviar Gold Cup, and was 5th in both. He ran creditably. I think there's more to come. Venetia had a few winners at Haydock in the past couple of days. Heavy ground's no issue. I think he'll run a big race.
Yeah, Venetia, she's not sort of had that massive amount of winners we're perhaps used to seeing her have when the ground gets heavy, but she is hitting form now, as you're saying. Burton's Well, very interesting horse indeed. We'll move on now to the 235 BetBright Casino Handicap Hurdle. Frank, how do they bet in this one?
Red Rising's 3 to 1, Arthur's Gift 7 to 2, Love Nor Money 9 to 2, Boyhood 7 to 1, Skip the Cuddles 15 to 2, Supreme Steel 8 to 1, and we're 11 to 1 bar.
Okay, Nick, so Red Rising looks one with a really interesting profile here. I'm sure many punters are going to be latching onto him. Is he the one you'd be in favour of?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is a much harder task than his previous win, you'd say. So he will have to prove up to it. And he's more kind of hype than substance at the moment compared to a horse like Arthur's Gift. But I do think he's got quite a lot of potential as a stayer, particularly on this kind of ground. He's won his point on heavy going. So I don't think the issue will be the ground will be an issue for him whatsoever. And just looking at him, I've watched his last 2 races quite closely. I think he won at Southwell last time. He just doesn't look to do anything very quickly at all. He's a real stayer. He probably wants this type of surface, and I could see him grinding it out. 3 miles around Cheltenham on this kind of heavy ground, it's going to be grueling. And I think he's just one of those peculiar horses that likes this kind of test. And yeah, I could see him going very well.
Okay, you mentioned Arthur's Gift, who of course won over this track last time for Nigel Twiston-Davies. Tom Humphries again on board. Ed, any strong opinion?
No, I'm sitting out this race. I'm going to go and make a prawn cocktail, something that will, not for me.
Prawn cocktail, very upmarket.
Right, New Year's, you've got to at some point, haven't you?
Frank, tell us which one you'll be getting stuck into in this race.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be a race where I'd be having the rent money on, but Love Nor Money fun. That ran well at Chepstow last time. He had on the heavy ground. He went out in front and he could be taken on by Red Rising in front. If that's the case, it might detract from his chances. But I think he should improve form the last time. And he was well backed as well, considering he'd been relatively disappointing on his comeback at Foss Lass. But I think I couldn't see him being overly strong early in the market. He might drift out to maybe a little bit bigger than he is now. If he hits like the 11-2, 6-1 mark, I might just have a few quid each way in him.
Okay, moving on to the second grade 2 of the day, the 310 Dawn and Engineering Railkeel Hurdle. We've got Agrapart in here, who of course was so agonisingly beating Lamy Serge in it last year. And then we've got Old Guard, Holstone. Raven Black's an interesting one. He's of course stepping up in trip. We're used to seeing him over 2 miles. And Royal Vacation after being pulled up in the Ladbrokes Trophy. And Colin's sister for the informed Fairglow Bryant as well. How do they bet on this one, Frank?
Yeah, Old Guard 9-4. Oh, actually, Colin's sister 2-1. Old Guard 9-4. Holstone 11-4. Agrapart 13-2. Royal Vacation 16-1. And we're 33-1 bar.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Ed. Take it away. Hopefully, you've got a strong opinion on this one.
I've got an opinion. Yeah, I mean, Agrapart is interesting, but clearly the wheels have kind of come off in recent times. But no problem with the ground. Obviously, he won this race last year. Colin's sister, you have to respect. I think probably didn't run to its best last time out at Newbury, and on its form on its penultimate run at Wetherby, clearly banged there. I'm probably, by process of elimination more than anything, I'm going to go with Holstone. I think they're between a rock and a hard place of this horse. He's not quite up to the top level over hurdles, and two things of him. I think they were thinking about going chasing, but I saw him in the paddock at Wetherby that day, and he looked like a flat horse compared to some of the others in there. He's not the biggest in terms of his physique, and I know that's not always the be-all and end-all. We look at the likes of Top Notch, your small little things, and they get from A to B fine. But I think that's kind of almost made them a little bit reluctant to go chasing with him. And as a consequence, they're kind of banging their head against the wall where to place him over hurdles. And also with Holstone, I'm not totally convinced he gets 3 miles at the top level. I think 2.5 on testing ground will probably suit him a lot more. I think he's a kind of an extended 2 mile, 6 furlong horse, if that makes any kind of sense. And I think here he's got form over course and distance. He's got to have no problem at all with this ground. Officially rated 155. He's got a lot going for him, and I think this is the kind of race Holstone will be able to cash in on.
Okay, so you reckon he can reverse the form with Colin's sister?
Yeah, I do. I think back at this track, on this ground, I think, there'll be a lot, won't be much between them. I do think this is the race for Holstone, though.
Okay, Watsy?
I really like Agrapart.
Go on, Watson.
Ted mentioned Agrapart earlier, and you go back a year and he was beating Lamy Serge up the running. That's good form. Lamy Serge has come out and won a Grade 1 in France since then, and ran a very good race in the long walk. I certainly wouldn't put anyone off still being interested in him for Cheltenham. But
you're not worried about his recent form?
Slightly, but it's interesting. Lizzie Kelly was on the not the morning line, the opening show a few weeks ago on Long Walk Hurdle Day when I think Agrapart was due to run. Now she said it's touch and go whether he does because they didn't know if it was soft enough for it. In the end, it didn't run. Now, it wasn't testing at Ascot, but it was certainly on the soft side. So it kind of indicates that Agrapart, a bit like Mulcahy's Hill yesterday, needs it kind of unraceable. I think it was soft when he beat Lamy Serge last year. It's going to be heavier than that tomorrow. And there are question marks a little bit about the form. But if they had him ready for the long walk, then presumably he's ready and fit and raring to go if they were willing to give him a chance in that. So, I think if he can, I don't think it's beyond the realms of imagination that he can come back to the form of a year ago, and if he does, then that puts him in with every chance. So matching the horse to the going, I've come up with Agrapart. Yeah,
previous Betfair hurdle winner as well. He tore apart the field that day, didn't he? So there's a case to be made for Agrapart. Frank, what do you reckon of this? Like Ed's touched upon, quite a few of them are between sort of handicap and graded company, and it looks sort of who's just going to cope with conditions best, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what I would think. Like, if you're to add to the Agrapart argument, Nick Williams in flying form, his last 8 runners, 4 of 1. He had one falling 3 out when close up at Newbury. T for 3 then was third in the King George, and he had another one second, and that's out of his last 8 runners. So he's banging form. So you could definitely give a big chance to Agripart if he does come back to form. And you think with the yard in form like that, if he's going to bounce back, it will be tomorrow. But I'm actually with Ed here. I think Holdstone, he's just not quite a grade 1 horse, and I don't think he quite gets the 3 miles. But he loves Cheltenham. He's 3 from 5 with a second in Time Peregrine Run, and obviously his third in the Albert Bartlett. So he does go well here. He'll handle the ground. This trip, is, in my opinion, is ideal for him. And I think if he's going to win a decent race, tomorrow will be the day.
Okay, so 2 votes for Holston and 1 for Agripart. Before we move on to covering a bit at Musselburgh, has anyone got any other fancies at Cheltenham? I'll go to you first, Frank.
Yeah, just one I thought potentially could be a half decent price. In the 12.15, the listed novices hurdle, Tickenbar was very impressive in his hurdles debut at Plumpton, where he beat Landon, who'd run in Grade 1's Grade 1 juvenile race at Cheltenham and Aintree last year. That horse is rated about 120, but Tickenbar didn't come off the bridle, beat him. Now, he was well beaten in the Aintree bumper last year, but he looks a horse that'll thrive over further, so this ground actually should play to his stamina. And I think the likes of Springtown Later was second behind on the blind side at Sandown, and Chia, and 1 for the road, Tom, in the race. You should be able to get a decent each way price. And if he's 7 or 8 to 1, I'll probably have a decent each way bet on him.
Okay, Tickenbar for Frank. Ed?
In the 12.50, this is the easiest race Vita de Rock's run in for about 19 years. I mean, Southfield Theatre will hate the ground. Lamel Cod, the race was reopened. They've just basically thrown him in here to jump around and pick up the 5th place prize money. He'll hate the ground. Roos Blanc's nearly 12. And I think Ballymalley didn't that refuse last time out. So if Vita de Rock can show any of the kind of form it was showing last season, he should cash in here with ground fine. He's got previous winning form at the track. Ran well in a Neptune 2 or 3 years ago here. If he doesn't win this today, I wouldn't be too surprised if Mr. Simon here and Isaac Swade got rid of him, to be honest with you, because, yeah, I'll be cheering on the boys in green tomorrow with Holstone and Vita de Rock.
Well, they're certainly having an amazing season, so I don't think you can go far wrong with that selection. Watsy?
I'd just add to the 12.15, I think Ain Cheer is a very interesting horse. Colin Tizard's had a few reverses, hasn't he, lately? Hasn't all gone his way. Slate House beaten, didn't win the King George. I think Ain Cheer is a really promising horse, and that could be his next kind of big thing. So I'm hoping for good things from him tomorrow anyway.
Subscribe to Members Club Ultimate and access unlimited video replays from all 86 racecourses in Britain and Ireland.